I love basketball, and we're coming up on that time of the year where it's time for basketball playoffs, baby, and we're hoping that our Miami Heat does well. Now, let's understand one thing, though, when it comes to sports. The best teams in the world have a great bench. Sometimes, as sales teams, we don't have a great bench, meaning we don't have a group of people that we can tap in when one of our main players is not performing up to par. In this episode, we're going to tell you how you can turn your SDR and your BDR team into that sales bench, what you need to do to equip them and to make sure that you have the right candidates who can be the right role players when you need them. You're going to love this. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast here on TSC TV on YouTube. I'm your host, Mr. Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have a great guest. His name is Mr. David Dulany, and David is going to talk to us about his philosophy, his idea, this framework that he's created, and he has a great book about it too. And he's gonna talk about that towards the end of our episode. But the concept here is, how can we help to make our sales team become that sales bench? How can we make our sales development team that ready group of people that we can tap in when we need them to get to the position to start closing and doing the things that they need to? And there's several concepts that he break down. I mean, it's a fun episode. It's very enlightening. And we had a great discussion. I hope that you're able to jump in and listen to it and feel that you can take a couple things that can help you as well. Let's go ahead and dive in. David, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to talk with you.
Of course, I'm looking forward to it. Now, before we dive into all the fun stuff, one of the things that we wanted to connect with you about and to chat about is just a little bit more about what you do. I mean, you guys are doing some amazing things out there in Silicon Valley. So tell us a little bit more about you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So, we found that most of the tech companies have an SDR team, so your sales development rep team, so sort of that top end of the prospecting funnel. But there wasn't one sort of research and advisory firm that really specialized in that area and really focused in on developing that team and developing the leaders of that team. So that's what Tenbound focuses on. We provide research and advisory services to folks that are trying to build those SDR programs at their companies.
Well, awesome. It sounds like a pretty good thing. I wish I knew about you guys when I was when I did my inside sales. That's what we called it back then, right? When I was an inside sales rep, and we were just like wild west, winging it, man, from the slinging guns and trying to figure out what's going to happen. And you learn the hard way, but you learn. But I'm grateful for companies and organizations like you guys make the job a lot easier.
We hope so, man. I mean, like one example is benchmarks. How
Sure.
many calls am I supposed to be making? Based on what's working right now. How many emails am I supposed to send? Like what's working out there in the industry. So, we put out a benchmark report quarterly and a lot of different research and stuff like that to just try to help people to be able to do it better. So.
Love it, man. So good. So I want to talk to you today a little bit, Dave. I want to go down, David, and talk about this idea of your sales bench, like how we can, because for the past several episodes, we've been focusing on hiring new sellers, and some of these sales leaders are on this episode, and they're listening, and they're trying to figure out, how can I make sure my these new hires are great, or my new sellers are on point. So we want to focus today on the discussion is make your sales development team, your sales bench. Talk to me about that real quick from that statement. How people are intrigued by that topic, but let's break it down. What is exactly they're going to get from this, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, most tech companies have an SDR team, a sales development rep team.
Mm-hmm.
And just at a high level, they look at it as advantageous because they can have somebody who's always focused on doing that tough part of the sales process. So there's one team or one person who's always cold calling, who's always making lists, who's always, following up on all the inbound leads. They're making sure that front end of the funnel is taken care of, 24/7 by the SDR team. And that's a huge value creator for companies, right? Because the sales reps are busy, closing deals and running demos and doing sales activities, that bring in the money. So if we have an SDR team, then we know that front end is covered. But the secondary advantage of having that SDR team, and something that some of the biggest tech companies out here have discovered, is it creates that sales bench. So when I say sales bench, it's like, bringing someone in who has little to no experience in sales, and creating a program where not only are they able to, help with the prospecting and help with following up on all the inbound leads, but they're learning core sales skills so that if you do have a open position on your sales team, you don't have to start cold. You've got this bench of people, and maybe there's like a super high performer, there's somebody who's just like, great for the culture, and you want to create an opportunity to, promote them. They're right there, ready to go. So that's, sort of a secondary advantage of having an SDR team.
One of the cool things about that too is the fact that I think about it like basketball, and I know you're out in Steph Curry country.
Yeah.
And, further down south, you got the Lakers and Clippers. And I just think about it like that, the basketball team, like that bench. You have some of these role players that you can just going into the playoffs right now, people are going to get hurt. You can have somebody you can just count on. They're prepped, they're ready, and they can go into the game and take advantage of it. I think sometimes, however, companies don't have the right things in place to give the individuals on their team the goal or the vision to say, you have an opportunity for growth in this organization. So it's just kind of like you're an SDR, we'll see what happens. You're a BDR, figure it out, figure it out, especially in smaller organizations. So I want to know, how can we go about making that happen though? How can we ensure that we make the sales development team our bench? Or what are some of the elements that makes for a good bench? Let's start off there. What are some of the elements that make for a great bench? And then we can go into the how we can go about doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things that come to mind initially. One is just thinking through the process of how you go from raw recruit, someone who just starts at the company, and all the skills that they would need to learn to become attractive for promotion. And this could be, if you're starting from zero, it could be just listing out like all the different things that would make an excellent sales rep at your company. Are they tenacious, proactive, positive attitude, they're really great at talking to people and moving them along through the sales process, stuff like that. So first, starting with like a list of attributes that would make somebody successful. And then basically it's like, okay, over the course of 1 year, can we create like a checklist for the SDR team to be able to get some training on those things, do some coaching, get up to speed, so that what you're trying to create is like almost like a stair-step process. So if a position does open up on the sales team, that you could identify initially like 2 or 3 people that are ready to go. The other thing to think about is even further back on the recruiting process. Like, can you just name 2 or 3 things that would be very important for somebody on the sales team right now to have, even before you bring them in? Are there 2 or 3 attributes that you've seen salespeople who are very successful on your team bring to the table even before they start? And those are going to be attributes at your company that you come up with. But it's like, can we start at the recruiting end of that? So we'll put that into the job description of the SDR, tell the recruiter, or, as you're talking to people, we want to make sure that we identify some characteristics in people that we can sort of ask questions about and dig in on in the recruitment process to make sure we're starting from, sort of the right person on that SDR team.
So I love that from the very, very start. It's now you're understanding culture when you come in, or you're understanding the path before you get in, and so you have this long term view in play. Like, I want to stay with this team for the long haul because there's some opportunities here. I could eventually be a superstar on this team, or this team is going to the finals, so to speak. I can make some money from what's happening here, and I can ride the wave. And it's not like you put the work in so you can get the opportunity. And I think that's a critical piece, is to know, like, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have your tough times. You put the work in, however, we're going to take care of you in the long run. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and it's, if you take the flip side, like some of the biggest mistakes that we see, with SDR teams is that, just like, first of all, there's really no recruiting process. It's just like, they can start Monday. You know what I mean? It's like they're ready to go. They say that they're going to make, cold calls. Okay, cool, you're in. There's no like structured, recruiting process. So that's the first thing. And then when they come in, it's sort of like churn and burn. Man. I mean, if you make it, you're good. You're going to make it on the team. If you don't, we're going to fire you in 3 months type of attitude. And this is from a leadership perspective. So it's like when you think about that, I mean, that might have worked, years ago, but today, I mean, it's expensive, man. I mean, you got to find people, you got to hire them, you got to pay them, you got to buy them, like all the latest tech tools and stuff like that. You really want to be more, careful in how you set up that whole process, so that you're not just like churning through SDRs constantly.
Yeah. What do you feel is how do we go about, we talked about the idea of the culture from the very beginning in the hiring process, but what are some of the things that you would share that would help us to create now that amazing bench with our SDRs? Yeah,
man. I mean, that's the first place to start is like, you sit down. What usually happens is there's nobody kind of like sits down and establishes what is the culture that we're going to set up, for the team. And so it's just like created in a vacuum. And if you've ever worked at like a crappy company, for lack of a better word, what it's like when a culture is just created like in a vacuum and it gets all weird and, toxic, So as the leader, you got to sit down and go, what are like the cultural, characteristics that we want to see with this team, and it seems very like, out there, but it's really just, maybe 2 or 3 sentences, or maybe, 5 or 6 words that say, hey, for our culture that we want to create, it's, high performance, team building, it's, self-education and persistence. I mean, even if it's those 4 things, we got to start somewhere, right? So let's get it down on paper, and then, use it in the hiring and the training process to continue to develop it.
Yeah. So I think the first part there, writing it out, having that almost like a manifesto, so to speak, that these are, I mean, one of the things that make the U.S. so attractive from many people, we have those set rules before you play the game. There's a Bill of Rights, there is a constitution that we're going to follow. And I think that kind of helps to kind of set that game. So I love that idea amongst the team, because and I think it's hard with salespeople sometimes, because we think that, and I'm just speaking out for me as a seller. I've been in the role where I've been the renegade. Like you're out, you're lone wolf, right? And it's kind of, you think of sales in that game, like, this is the way that we do things. You just make it happen. You just do what you need to do. It's obviously ethical, make your numbers. And that's not necessarily, I guess what I'm getting at is more and more that I see sales over the past like 15, 20 years, it became a team sport in a sense. First, like with the marketing, and then now even, like what Aaron Ross did with breaking this stuff out with Salesforce initially, you have these teams where you have BDR and your SDR team, and now you have sales ops and your so forth. Like it's an orchestrated attack, and it should be as such. And if that is not set up at the go from the start, like you're saying with this constitution, so to speak, it's like, how in the world can you really thrive? You're wasting money left and right.
Oh,
got me excited
100%.
All this understatement.
And that lone wolf, I mean, that's still definitely still the case. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like building pipeline, closing deals. I mean, that's sales like boils down. But you're exactly right. And you mentioned inside sales. I mean, the world is kind of going more, especially with this pandemic and everything, toward inside sales, where it used to be in an office, but now it's like even remote at your home, and everything's connected via, internet systems and stuff like that, and you can kind of see what the marketing team's doing to create the leads and the campaigns that they're running, and then what the SDRs are doing to convert those, and then what the sales team is doing to convert those. And like you said, it's an orchestrated, aligned, machine, basically like a go-to-market machine. And if somebody's like, I'll give you an example, if someone's like a killer salesperson, right, and they're crushing it, but they're completely toxic, they're treating, everybody like garbage, the back office, the SDRs, like, but they're bringing in these huge amounts, then the leadership has a tough, they're in a tough spot, right? Because they need the money that this person's producing. You know what I mean? And especially at a small company, like every dollar counts. But, they need the money. But at the same time, this person's like majorly, violating the Constitution, of the team. And, we see that every day. I mean, and you got to make a tough decision. It's like, what's more important to you, the overall success of the go-to-market machine that you're building, or this rock star one person that's just like, destroying all the relationships inside the company? So it's tricky, man.
When do you, I mean, have you ever had a situation like that? How did you go about tackling it, or tackling it? That's a new word, tackling it. How did you go about tackling it?
Well, it's interesting because I've worked for those prima donnas, and I've worked in situations where I've been the SDR, or I've been the back end person, and I've seen it go both ways, where the leadership took action to isolate or remove this person, or they've just sort of let it go. So I've seen both sides, and I kind of felt it. I've never been the sales manager who's had to deal with that, but I don't envy that person whatsoever, because like I said, it's tough, man. But I can tell you from working with those people and trying to maintain sanity and maintain like a team culture, it's really tough, because they're basically, that's when like mission statements and stuff become a joke, because it's like, hey, the company says that it's teamwork, it's honesty, it's courtesy, or whatever the Constitution is there for the company, but then this person can violate all that because they bring in all the money. It's like, that's when it all becomes a joke, right? But it's like, if you think about the leadership of the opposite of that, if like that person is continuously violating those things, everyone knows it, and then the leadership comes in and go, hey, we had to make a change in order to preserve our culture, then that's a message to the whole team that says, actually, that mission statement is real, it's important, and it's something that we got to work toward. So
yeah, and I agree with you there. Sometimes it's hard, but you might think, somebody is bringing in 120% of their target monthly, and they're horrible. What is the cost? Because I'm going to lose team members who are not going to want to stick around and not going to be as productive. So I could have another team member I could have the other two team members who are hitting 80% right now get to 100% if this person wasn't there. And it's like, okay, well, that would be better. And I can hire somebody else that can hit 100%. So even though you're hitting a 120 and 140, it's the long-term cost that would be more concerned about. Any other thoughts that we can do to help build this bench? We talked about this idea of constitution. We also like some of these other concepts here of, getting rid of people who are rogue, not following rules. Anything else that we can do to help establish a good environment for our bench?
Yeah, I would think of, especially in the case of like the SDR program, if you've got an SDR program, or you're thinking about like kind of that junior to senior level inside sales, is think in terms of certifications. So certifications is a great way to say, hey, we know the 5 or 6 set of skills that are really important for your promotion. We've broken those down into a checklist. Now we got to make sure that we're imparting that knowledge over the course of 12 to 18 months that you're in this position. And when you pass you as the SDR, when you pass through these gates, you're going to be certified. You may even get like a different title, so you become, you come in as like SDR 1, then you go to SDR 2, then you're BDR 1, BDR 2, etc., to show that you're moving and progressing through the process. And you can kind of tie that into what the training and the coaching is going to be, and it's a very laid out, structured program that everybody understands. So the advantage there from a management perspective is, every SDR wants to be promoted like immediately. They've been crushing it for like 3 months. They're like, dude, I want to be in the AE now. And that's understandable, right? Yeah, because you double your salary. It's way more prestigious, etc. So that I get that. But the thing is, if you have that certification, ladder set up, then I don't even want to have that conversation until you're at, BDR 3 or whatever it is. That's when the gate opens up that you're eligible for promotion. And so it's like, you're motivated to learn all that stuff and to be coachable and, continue to progress. And then I'm motivated to get you there because I want that bench strength for in case somebody leaves the company or, gets, off the sales team. I need to get somebody in there fast. So.
Love it, man. We're coming up on here to the very end. If there's one major tip, one major piece of advice you want a leader listening to this episode to walk away with, what's that one major advice, David?
Yeah, I mean, so from our perspective, as looking at SDR teams, it's take the position seriously, take the team seriously, because it's a critical piece of the puzzle, to build pipeline at your company and to build that bench strength. And what we see a lot of the times is, it kind of, the position sits between marketing and sales, and people don't really, there's not a lot of expertise out there on the SDR position. So they're just kind of like, it almost becomes like a hot potato, because sometimes marketing is running it, sometimes sales is running it. It's like, we don't know who it is. And I would just encourage everybody, really sit down and say, okay, how can we structure this in a way to get maximum value from the big investment that we're putting? Whether you have one SDR or a big team, you're putting a lot of money into this, and you could wring out a lot more value and make a much better experience for the people that are in the position if you put in the time and put in the architecture behind it to take it seriously. So,
love it. If folks out there listening want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing so, David?
Yeah, man. I mean, just head over to Amazon and pick up the new book, Sales Development Framework. Sorry, I'm a salesperson. We basically put down this whole thing into the book, Sales Development Framework. Otherwise, Tenbound.com, TENBOUND.com. And, we'd love to get you some of that free information that's over there for running your SDR team.
We love it, man. Well, David, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Thank you so much for your wisdom and for helping us understand this bench and getting them ready. Hey, number 5, get up. You're getting in the game. Just kidding.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for having me on. It was great talking with you. Let's do it again.
Same to you, David. That was David, and if you want to go ahead and connect with David, you can find all of his information. You can find him on LinkedIn. He is the founder of an amazing organization. It's called Tenbound, and you can learn all about him and some of the great things that he's doing. You can also check out his latest book, as he just went ahead and took the opportunity to tell you guys about that. We're going to have him talk about it anyways, because it's a fantastic book, and I think it can really help you as a leader or as an individual on a team. I want you to succeed. We bring on folks like David because they have value, and we want to help you. We want you to find more people like David, that David is doing, to help your team perform. We want to help you to find the right prospects in your organization, for your organization. We want you to find the right messaging that you can share with those prospects, and we want you to be able to help close more deals. In order to best do that, we bring on folks like him that can share that. We want you to take advantage of the tools that we have as well. Some of these tools that our sponsors are giving and sharing, these tools will help you. All of this is geared back towards you thriving and succeeding as a sales rep. Most importantly, we want you to raise your level of thinking each day. And we want you to go out and do big things. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up at the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.